Hey guys, welcome to the next video, which is on forwarding imposition. Um, so yeah, let's get started. So firstly, I'm going to talk about what do we want to do when an opponent four bets imposition. So a trait you'll see in like micro stakes games and even games up to like 50 zoom and like 100 zoom even. The population at these games, they don't really four bet bluff a whole lot. Especially the unknowns and people you don't have many hands with. So the dynamic because of this, so if they never bluff, let's just imagine they're the cutoff and we're the small blind. If they never bluff and they always four bet a hand that they're willing to stack off with, then yeah, you're going up against kings plus, or if they're willing to stack off with queens, and ace king suited, stuff like this. So you can't really outplay in any situation. You can't really call out of position. And you can't 5-bet jam because you run into the nuts. So this contrasts with when people are playing out of position and they 4-bet. So if this player opens, let's imagine MP opens, this player 3-bets, and this player can still have 4-bet folds, which are still like value orientated. Like they could still 4-bet ace king off and queens and fold to a jam. So yeah, like even though they weren't really bluffing, they can still fold to re-raises. And they might also, because they're out of position, they can get a bit freakier with some bluffing hands or like ace 5 suited, just because 3-bets in position can be wider depending on the player. So yeah, so back to 4-betting in position. So 4-bets in position in like a spot like this versus small blind can be a very, very narrow range, which you can't really outplay. So yeah, that's the first thing you should know. And yeah, another piece of logic behind this is because when people are in position, they always have the opportunity to just flat playable hands. So ace king suited, jacks, tens and stuff. Whereas out of position, they might want to fast play to get some folds and realize their equity and see a flop. In position, they can always just call. And this kind of follows with post-flop play as well. So when people are in position with like a drawing hand, imagine there's a flop is quite wet, and let's just imagine it's jack 9 6 with a flush draw, and we have like pocket nines in a single raise pot, and we have like king queen of clubs or whatever. Like when we have a flush draw, we're probably just going to call and try to realize our equity and improve on the turn. But when we have a set on a board like that, we're probably going to want to fast play to just get money in, get stacks in, and yeah, make our opponent pay because we have the best hand at a very high frequency. And then if we imagine we're out of position in the same situation, let's say we're small blind versus facing a c-bet by the cutoff, like we can check raise like a combo draw or a nut flush draw a lot more often, because we want to like get folds and we want to seize control of the hand, and yeah, build the pot and like try and reduce the disadvantage we have for being out of position. So yeah, basically out of position people can have more raised folds, whereas in position, when people re-raise in position, it's very, very strong. So yeah, generally you want to be very cautious and respectful when people raise in position. Okay, so another thing to do with 4-bet pots is that, so people who never bluff, let's say they have a range, again, let's look at cutoff at small blind, let's say they only 4-bet kings plus, what people like to do is do very small 4-bets to try and bait you into coming along into the hand. If you have like, if you 3-bet ace queen off or ace queen suited, pocket jacks, pocket tens, all of these hands don't have better than 25% equity against kings plus, so they like to like 4-bet small so that you feel compelled to, you get induced to calling or playing post flop. And yeah, what I do personally against people who are unknowns or who are just nits, I just fold a lot, even though I'm getting like 3-1 on a call. I personally just fold a lot, just to prevent like reverse implied odds. Whereas like if people raise a wider frequency with a bigger sizing, I'm still more inclined to play. So yeah, it's important to know what they do. But there was a guy at 200 zoom who was 4-betting in position like for half pot, which is like 2x your 3-bet, and he was folding like all the time to 5-bet. So it changes player to player whether they're inducing or bluffing, but yeah, having a HUD helps for that kind of stuff when you have like 2,000 hands. And I think he was just playing very wide against me for some reason, but yeah, I literally printed so much by 5-bet jamming against him with just any 2 cards. Like he was folding like 85% or something ridiculous versus 5-bet jam. So yeah. Okay, so yeah, how do we counterplay very tight 4-bets in position when we're out of position? Since people are 4-betting very narrow, we can 3-bet wider because we free roll the flop more often. So yeah, you basically realize a lot more equity in your 3-bet bluffs. You never get blown off your hand, except when they have the nuts. So yeah, this is quite nice for our bluffs. But yeah, we do fold too much to 4-bets, too much in quotes, because when they do 4-bet, we just automatically fold, which is fine until they adjust. So going back to what our 4-bet in position strategy should look like. Yeah, so like the scenario I have here is button versus small blind. You're mostly going to be playing against small blind 3-bets, just because small blinds 3-bet more than the big blind. And yeah, so what like typical logic is you can, so these might be calls in position, something like this, and kind of standard logic is to 4-bet a hand which is slightly worse than your calling range. So if that's a call, then like a pretty standard 4-bet bluff in this spot would be like ace 9, ace 8, ace 7 suit, offsuit, at some frequency, not 100%, maybe like 10% or something. And then you have your stack offs like this, and maybe like half of jacks. Yeah, so let's just do this or something. So yeah, it might look like something like this, and then half of jacks. So this strategy would be doing okay in my opinion. We're mainly weighted to value, but ace king off should be a lot more populous. Yeah, so you know, we got a few bluffs, probably we need some more, but this is okay. We have an ace blocker with our bluffs, which is good. It reduces the probability of our opponent having ace king, aces, stuff like that. But yeah, you can get into some situations where against people you're playing a lot against, your bluffs are going to be pretty face up. So what you can also consider doing is having some like a better board coverage with 3-betting like all of this stuff at like a very rare frequency. Even a quarter is too often, but you can use something like this to like 4-bet them 1/8 of the time. Yeah, so like the green occasionally comes up. Yeah, but having an ace blocker is quite important. Or you can have like a king and a queen blocker, but low frequency. It just gives you, there'll be some flops where you don't want to bluff your air, but you never like you never have a strong hand on the board. So if it comes like jack 10x, having some of jack 10 suited is quite nice. Even though when they call out of position they can often have like jacks and 10s and stuff. So yeah, having the board coverage would be quite good. So yeah, having blockers is important. My advice would be to don't 4-bet bluff tight 3-bet ranges. This is also quite important. If a guy only 3-bets like these kind of hands, then you just want to get rid of all of these bluffs. There's no point having them. And then you also want to call these hands versus a 3-bet, and then just like attack him with this as a 4-bet range and stack off. And yeah, you can 4-bet bluff wider against people who 3-bet a lot out of position. There's going to be lots of tough hands to play out of position for that opponent if they do decide to call, and not many people 5-bet bluff out of position. Also, when people are out of position, they're generally just going to pile ace, king, and queens plus pre-flop in late position just to prevent tough post-flop spots when they're out of position. So when they do call out of position, so if we assume a player is playing kind of well and it's 3-betting like this kind of stuff, and when they get 4-bet, they fold the worst hands and they call, and they always 5-bet. They always 5-bet jam ace, king, and queens plus. They're going to be playing out of position with hands like this. And yeah, so all you have to do really is pile a lot of pressure on ace high boards with ace king, on king high boards with ace king again, and then be passive when there's a jack and a 10 on the board. And then yeah, with your 4-bet bluffs with these hands, you just want to play passive and bluff catch against those hands, or whatever against king queen, and like try to lose them in against ace queen and ace jack. So you have a pretty easy time navigating when you 4-bet bluff in position, just attacking those hands. And yeah, so something to consider as well is that I've already talked about it. Yeah, using the same old bluffs is very face up. So just a little story is a housemate I lived with last year. When he was watching my stream, every time I was in any of these positions, I would always 3-bet king 9 suited, and when I was out of position, I would always 4-bet king 9 suited, because king 10 suited would be a flat, and king 9 suited was the next worst one. So I was always 4-betting king 9 suited. And yeah, he whenever he watched my stream, he was just like, you always have king 9 suited when you're 3-bet bluffing, 4-bet bluffing, anything. And yeah, like, there's a time when, I mean, this guy shouldn't have played it any different, but the board came like, I 4-bet out of position with king 9 suited. Some guy slow played aces, and the board came like 9x, x, king, and I won a stack of him. But yeah, if you're always known for playing the same old hands the same way, then it can get a bit face up. So it might be better to use a mixing strategy with a wider range of hands and some mergy 4-bets. So yeah, having good blockers is essential. So don't just spaz with suited connectors. They have a really tough time overtaking jacks, 10s, and 9s. If we're looking at a spot like this, where we do this and the board comes like this, I'm gonna have a tough time overtaking jacks, 10s, and 9s, especially on a board like this, of course. Yeah, we win this hand, by the way, but yeah. So yeah, I think that's everything I wanted to cover. I'm trying to keep the video shorter. I think this has been quite succinct and covers everything you need to know about 4-betting in position. The next video is, I believe, going to be on 4-betting out of position, and yeah, I'll see you soon.